All right. Happy Friday. Welcome back to another Angular Nation Experts channel. And I got to let Robert in. I want to welcome everybody back. I'm Bonnie, you know me, and I want to thank AG Grid for helping us make this possible. I want to thank our guests today, Emma Twersky and Alex Rickabaugh from the Angular team. Very excited to have you guys here. How are y'all doing today? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
We were just checking out your different coffees because it's morning over there, it's evening over here. So we've got a whole global crowd from all over the world. We got a couple people from APAC and lots from Europe and all over the place. So basically, just to give a little quick expectation, I started this hallway track thing because some of you already know this, but I started this hallway track thing because I first got to meet the Angular team at conferences and just kind of hanging out in the hallway. And these conversations were just so much fun to get to know them as people and just ask random questions. And so I started inviting the Angular team here just as a hallway track. So we don't necessarily have a specific agenda or a specific topic, but Emma and Alex are super full of information. And so for me, and we've done this before and it's just fun. We can just basically talk about whatever we want to. So I actually put Emma on the spot tonight and said, you want to be our headliner. So I want to start off with you, Emma, if we can ask you, and everybody remember, participation is heavily encouraged in the hallway track. So I really want you guys to feel free to participate, ask questions, beginner questions, expert questions, and everything in between is allowed here. Emma, I want to start off with you. Hello. And is there anything off the top of your head that you know for sure that you want us to know about? Anything that you're excited about, or anything that you wish more people knew, or anything, resources that you want us to know about? Anything?
Oof. Okay, let me think about it. I mean, from version 14, I think there's a ton to talk about. I know we mentioned sort of later roadmap things, so we can talk about the roadmap. We talked about hydration. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So if you're interested in keeping up with what we're doing, go to the Angular roadmap, angular.io/roadmap. Maybe there's a guide in there. But yeah, that's probably what we're going to talk about today. So if you want to follow along, start there.
Agent Rob, will you do me a favor and grab the links that if they mention any links and just drop them in the chat for us? Oh, no, Alex beats to it. 2 steps ahead of us. Thank you, Alex. Quick on the draw. Okay, yeah, so we had, Alex was talking about standalone components, and we had a lot of really good questions about that. We had a discussion about that. And Dylan was here. We talked about the type forms, which is very exciting. And there's more. Do you guys have specific things? Anybody want to raise hands and talk about specific things from v14? Sandra, you're muted.
Yeah, I know. I would like to talk about the progress in the build tooling, if there is room for that.
I saw you say esbuild, so we can talk about that a little bit.
Cool. I have been building with esbuild, and it works like our charm mostly. I really like that we are breaking with the big bundle sizes. So speed this thing up, make it complete, because that is worth so much. It is the biggest problem I see with Angular at the moment. So I was hoping to see some progress report on that.
Yeah, I'm actually searching internal prioritization to see if I can find the latest update. But I know I've talked to Alan, and our team just got together for an onsite, and I know everyone is pretty happy with where esbuild is going, at least. The thing about experimental things, and I think standalone components did a really good job of this, is we sort of came up with this idea of developer preview, and we were released a thing, and we were we're not sure how this is going to work, so we're not committing to it being stable because we might need to change everything. But we think it works really well, so it's going to be in preview just in case, right? Because Angular I think we hold ourselves to a really high bar of backwards compatibility and stability. in features in general. But esbuild is sort of under that umbrella of like, okay, this is experimental and we're going to see if like people like it and if it's working. And so far, all of the issues that I've seen raised on it in general have a similar feel, which is like, this works, there's some edge cases to figure out, and mostly it unlocks some other really cool stuff in build tooling. But like the benchmarks are pretty good. The interesting thing for me is I was asking the team for benchmarks on like how much faster does this make your build? And in general, it wasn't really like the esbuild migration doesn't have anything to do with like size or speed, but it does unlock some stuff that I think is on the roadmap for the future. Sort of like, you could think of it as like Ivy is like the best large example of that, right? Like we moved to Ivy, there were some enhancements there, but really what it did was unlock like 20 other issues on the backlog of things that we actually wanted to get to that would be a lot cooler, that will help developers a lot more. I think esbuild sort of does a similar thing of like moving forward in the ecosystem. Yeah, Alex, do you have any, not to punt it over to you, but do you know any esbuild fun snippets?
I know some things about esbuild. I actually was talking to Charles about this at our offsite last week.
On a boat? You guys had an offsite on a boat, I think? How fun was that?
Yeah, we had a little sailing excursion.
You deserve it. V14 was amazing. You have to celebrate. Okay,
yeah,
go ahead. So what happened?
I had
Tell
nothing
us.
to do with planning the sailing, by the way. They invited me along. Yeah, so esbuild is interesting, right? And in particular, I've felt for a long time that like JavaScript tooling needs to be rewritten in languages that aren't JavaScript. If you look at the examples of people doing this, the performance benefits that you get are just amazing. It's like 10x or more sometimes. JavaScript is just, it's a nice language, but it's not well suited for the kinds of like deep parsing and string processing stuff that build tooling usually requires. And so I know our CLI, and actually I don't know too much about what the CLI is doing right now with esbuild. I guess it's a replacement for Webpack as the core bundling layer. But my interest is a little bit different in the subject. I would like to see us experiment with moving the Angular compilation part itself into esbuild and doing that part in native code. And there's some challenges there. If you look at the way Angular works today, there's a couple of things that it does that are not compatible with compiling on a file-by-file basis. So for example, we have ng modules, right? And if you go and look at a component file in your IDE, you will find that there is no reference or indication whatsoever which ng module that component belongs to. That's because it's the ng module that says, like, I declare this component, not the component that says, like, I belong to this ng module. I think we talked about this a little bit for standalone. And what that means is that if you're an Angular compiler, and you encounter a component and decide I need to compile this component, you have no choice but to look through every file in the project to find the ng module to know how to correctly compile that component. And that means that Angular compilation just doesn't fit well in that kind of file-by-file compilation model that a lot of the modern tooling like esbuild uses. Another challenge is that in your component, you can say, oh, I want my selector is this string literal thing. Or you can say, my selector is this constant that I've imported from another file in the project. That kind of ability to do certain types of calculation and static analysis over metadata gives Angular some flexibility in how you specify these things, but also makes it a little tricky to implement this model in a modern tool like esbuild. Another challenge is esbuild itself has a very limited plugin architecture. There's only a small set of things that plugins can do, and actually access to the source code as an AST is not one of them. And this is, I think, by design, the authors of esbuild don't want to fall into the same trap that Webpack did, where they make their entire internal data structure part of their plugin API. And then, surprise, you can't change anything because anything you do at all there will break plugins in the ecosystem. So they're being very cautious there, and I think rightfully so. But it does mean that there's limited opportunities to kind of integrate with this tool, at least at that layer. But there are some things we can do there, and we're kind of experimenting with those. You also notice projects like standalone components, right? One of the nice things about standalone components, apart from the reduction in boilerplate, is it actually puts the information needed to compile the component, right? Those things that it depends on, right in the file itself. And so we're slowly, it's not the primary reason, but we're slowly moving Angular and trying to cross out these like restrictions that would prevent us from doing file-by-file compilation. So we're headed in that direction. There are a number of challenges that we have to overcome first, but I think the potential is very interesting. With Charles, we were talking about like a good first step might be moving the Angular linker, that tool which compiles your libraries that you pull from NPM. Doing that in esbuild is very easy, quote unquote easy, because the way linking works, like when you publish a library, we do all that analysis, we look at all the other files, and we basically set the library up for file-by-file compilation. So it's already kind of optimized and in a state where it could very easily be processed by a build tool like esbuild. So some interesting things on the horizon there, but kind of nothing practically working yet.
Sander has more questions, Alex.
Yeah.
Sander always has more questions.
Well, actually, have you seen a thing called Bun or Bum? I think
I have.
Bun.
I've looked a little bit at Bun.
It's even faster than esbuild. It's fun to play with. I don't know how mature it is. I don't think it's too mature.
And it has a much cuter name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That definitely, yes. But also it's written in a language that I had never heard for before, and I looked at that, and that is very well suited for the payload. So that was the most interesting thing about Bun for me. But I thought we were looking at moving the Angular compiler to a TypeScript plugin or transformer. So
that's a little bit different. If you look at the architecture of the Angular compiler today, you run this NGC tool, and whether you run it directly or the CLI launches it, it still kind of works the same way. And NGC internally says, okay, I'm going to create all the machinery of a TypeScript compiler. So I'm going to create the parser, I'm going to create the like compiler hosts, I'm going to create the program and then analyze all the source files, and like NGC is firmly in the driver's seat of TypeScript compilation, which was the original way we architected it, right? It's like a drop-in replacement for the TypeScript compiler. And that project, like making it a plugin, is more concerned with inverting that relationship. So making it so that the consumer, in this case, the CLI, is responsible for kind of creating the TypeScript program and all the machinery around it, and then hands that off to the Angular compiler and says, please process this already existing thing, rather than create your own. And that model is interesting because it allows you to take advantage of certain like caching things in TypeScript or other tools which integrate with TypeScript, which kind of expect the program to already exist.
Yeah, it's like Vite would then be more possible and stuff like that.
Yeah, although with Vite, you still have the kind of limitations around compiling single files, which is something that TypeScript can do and we can't, right? So
yeah,
getting Angular to the point where it can be compiled file by file is a priority.
Yeah, that also makes it easier to invert the relationship once that is done. That's true. Yeah, what I really loved about the whole esbuild thing is that the bundler is so much smarter, so you don't end up with a 10, 15 megabyte main file or main bundle or vendor bundle, but like small bundles like they are supposed to be. It's so much smarter than Webpack. I don't know why Webpack is not doing this, because apparently it's a valid option. They never choose to use that.
Just to jump in, I do think I finally found the PR I was looking for. I think that esbuild is smarter, but they're limited in what they support still, right? So like the big thing the team has been working on that is like the milestone that needs to be hit for this to be like not experimental is like Angular developers use Sass, and like
Oh, that works.
esbuild until this PR landed, like it's still open. There's not full Sass modern, like we are not actually using the modern Sass APIs in our esbuild bundler. So esbuild was doing it, but like we weren't, if that makes sense. So there's like additional things we need to bring in to make sure, like we were using esbuild, but like the lazy version of like some of the older bundler compilation, like
yeah, actually, I just installed 14.1.1 today, and that actually compiles with Sass. So that is a big uptick, but it still has issues with SCSS, especially if you are going to import something from Node, like something stupid like Bootstrap or
yeah. So I think that's why, like, you know, Webpack, we like built out this like wide API like platform that like everything works, and esbuild is like, if you use the tools that we want you to use, it's like definitely a great option to explore. But I can't find like something on the roadmap that explicitly says we're going to go through and like widen the breadth to like a Webpack sized like API surface to make it like first party preferred. But I do feel like it's sort of headed that way. I can't speak to whether or not Alex is going to move the framework to do it too with the compiler. But
I was told
It's amazing what Alex does sometimes. Hey, don't forget, Sandra, we have more hands up too.
Yeah.
You deep dive from like right off the. We love you though. Can we go to other questions? And everybody remember, questions are welcome, and Sandra will ask questions the whole time, but we want everybody to ask questions. Go ahead, Tom. How are you, Tom Eustace? Good to see you.
Hi guys, how you doing? I know you did a lot of research into the micro front end approach, and as part of the roadmap. I was wondering if you had any findings you could share with us that might drive changes in the framework.
yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if I've seen the research. So I know we are like very much in the research phase of that, which is that we sort of went out to developers like on our public Twitter, and we're like, hey, we're looking at this thing that we know people are doing like better than we have a clear solution for. I don't think we have a synopsis of like what the solution is. I know Minko is in the process of writing something up, but I haven't seen anything that like summarizes what people have said. I think a lot of what we were getting back from people was like most of the users doing micro front end approaches are enterprises that have like very specific environments set up. And so it was like really hard to pull any sort of generalized pattern from it, because micro front ends, the way I've seen micro front ends in the ecosystem is like they almost come out of necessity of like the specific weird ecosystem your enterprise is set up, where you have like, like you didn't write. The design was never to start with the micro front end. The micro front end was sort of like what came out of something. And so it's hard to flip the opposite and be like, okay, we're going to design the micro front end up front and then implement. If that makes sense.
It's like they're trying to break it down because they're all getting too big. But then the flip side of that is when you start with micro front ends, you have to keep it organized, because it's really easy to just make it crazy and next thing you know, you're loading like 17 different versions of Angular and like whatever, it's all bundled and rebundled and crazy. And so it kind of requires adult supervision within the team. And at enterprises, even if you do keep everything neat and tidy, it gets crazy at enterprise. and complicated. It's
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to be like NG Angular micro front end.
easier. Yeah.
Even though that'd be cool. I know that the takeaway from that is that Manfred Steyer will be like writing a best practices guide for us to publish, since a lot of the enterprises that are like, oh, we do that, like he is in some way involved or behind that. So we are drawing on the experts of the community for that. But
Okay.
yeah.
That's great. Yeah, because we're using Angular elements, but we bundle everything. So I guess we got the Angular compiler running in several bundles. But yeah, we're using Manfred Steyer's ngbuild plus to help us with that. So yeah.
There you go. Yeah, if you haven't already provided feedback on any of those forms that we've sent out, I would highly recommend. You can like DM me or something, and I'll make sure that you're connected with the person on our team working on that. Alex, you had a micro front end thing, I assume.
Oh no. Actually, I need to drop off to go to another meeting. We're actually discussing some things around like how we organize and deal with GitHub issues. So just finding.
We love you, Alex.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody! Before he goes, can you all come off mute and just give him some love?
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks,
Bye,
Alex.
Alex. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Bye, Alex.
Come back soon and often, Alex.
Yeah, Alex. Make more
Cheers.
coffee.
I will be back.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye. All right, Emma. It's all you,
Okay.
man.
Now, if I get the answers wrong, nobody on the team will know.
Yeah, we won't tell them. Your secret.
It's just recorded. Anyways, Sandra, did you have a micro front end thing?
Yeah, I still believe that in most cases, iframes is a better solution than what is currently known as micro frontends.
That's
and
so
I'm willing to-
1997, Sonder.
Yeah, that it is old doesn't mean it is written off. I think we are still using HTML. Do you know how
Like
old
some
that
of
is?
us, just because we're old doesn't mean we don't work anymore. Yeah, you're right. I'm just giving you a hard time, Sonder. Okay, Emma, can we circle back to forms? We're excited about forms. We have questions.
Like
Typed forms. I don't know, Sonder. You have questions about forms?
Yeah, but not about type forms.
Not about type.
I'm building another validation engine for template-driven forms and also for reactive forms if somebody really, really, really wants to. But
Sonder has feelings.
yeah, and I'm not hiding them. But then I found out that Angular blocks the error messages from the browser. If I directly set the error message on the input field, on the DOM, Angular blocks that somehow. If I take off the forms module, it works. If I use the forms module, the errors go away. I can set the invalid state and everything. That is fine. The ng invalid state, but also an input has its own invalid state, and Angular is somehow making that go away. So I just found this out earlier this afternoon, and I was, okay, is that by design or is that a bug?
It's possible. I would search the GitHub. We do suppress, I know forms as a package has some error suppressions, so that like the reason that it suppresses errors is that it's like we don't want you to surface a browser level like pop-up error if we have our own error implementation, right? Like we have a prettier error than like so we suppress the like OS level error. So if you were trying to bypass that, I don't know off the top of my head if we have a way. I rarely use template-driven forms, but
the same goes for reactive forms, though. It is the same form control, but what is doing the work. So
yeah, there's error suppression at the OS level, so that we're not like double surfacing errors. I don't know if either like you need to use the errors we throw as the validation errors, or you can suppress our suppression.
yeah, that was kind of the question. I actually liked because the Angular version only lets you set some styling, and you cannot surface the error text unless you do some extra work. Well, the browser's versions let you surface the error text. You can set, hey, the name is too short, and you will have the pop-up in the browser standards pop-up like, hey, the name is too short. And as far as I know, Angular has no mechanism for that.
No, I don't think we do. We have like a very rudimentary error format. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the option is, but I think there's a way to suppress the errors that we surface, so that you can get back to the previous suppression.
Okay, yeah, that would be nice.
Because you're just trying to default to the OS layer, which, like, in theory, we should be doing to begin with, is my take.
I totally agree there. I know it was working. And I found another error with the forms module. If you use forms in a form into a dialog, you have like you have a form type that closes the dialog. That doesn't work if the Angular forms module is loaded. Neither the reactive forms or the template-driven forms. It doesn't close the dialog anymore. Well, if you disable the thing, it closes the dialog.
Yeah. I think some of this also might be somewhat newer because, like, the OS layer, I mean, it depends what OS you're using, but like the OS layer has done a lot of work on native dialog components recently. And so like native dialogues have been completely rewritten in implementation. So I mean, it's way better. Like if you talk to the Chrome team, they're actually like reading dialogues as dialogues and like interpreting that. And a lot of it has to do with the accessibility behind the screen of what they're suppressing and what they're not. But I don't think that plays well with our forms, to be honest. In general, like the OS is now trying to stop you from suppressing things that they know are good and create accessible experiences. And we're like throwing forms and dialogues, which is just like not, we suppress things. I would if you open an issue and ping me, feel free, or if you find an issue, let me know, because I will.
I didn't come around for the dialogue issue to raise an issue for that. I think that the other one I found out this afternoon, I didn't even check if there was an issue for that.
Yeah, if there is.
And if it's by design, I can open an issue, but it's kind of moot.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me know if you do some more research into it, because I think it's either part of like the new implementation of like Chrome. Like dialogues just got a massive rework, right? I also work on the Chrome team a little bit, and like
not only in Chrome, dialogues are basically a new thing that actually started working like a couple of months ago.
Sorry.
So,
dialogues were like number 2 on the list of like interop 2022, which means that like every browser is actually using the right dialogues now. I would guess that doesn't play well with old packages that haven't been looked at.
Which includes Angular nowadays, apparently.
I mean, I don't know how many forms are in dialogues, but yeah.
I have a sample, so I will make an issue if there is nothing there with a sample in there.
Then does the
excellent questions.
Cool.
We have more questions too.
Yeah.
Good questions, Sandra. Yen, hello.
Hello, Emma, and hello, James. I am Hin from Vietnam. I have one question. It's just a general question. Is that in the future, will Angular be more declarative or more imperative?
I think if you look at the inject PR and just in general, it looks unintentionally like we've made the decision to be declarative. I think that's a big question of, again, like Alex and I were referencing this team offsite. And I think like the really cool thing about the Angular team right now is that while the pandemic has not been great, the pandemic has opened Google's eyes up to like remote teams, which means we've been able to bring on a lot of like remote contributors who have cared about the framework for a long time. And that means you're seeing a lot of fresh energy in like some of the big questions around Angular that there aren't answers for yet, but there are a lot of people thinking about. And a lot of the presentations are like, okay, like, how do we remove zones? Like, that's a, you know, that is a major change in the mental model of a lot of like the behind the scenes of the trade-offs that Angular made. And I think a lot of the decisions point towards a more declarative framework in general.
I remember talking to Stephen Fluin in London years ago about zones and how like we could do it, but we need the developers to change the way they're writing things. And that's really the challenge more than even the code, is getting the developers to change the mental model, which is one of the inspirations behind Angular Nation, by the way. So we can have
I
these
mean, I think it's great. I think it's really complicated because like everybody makes trade-offs, right? Like nobody is like, we have solved every problem. It's just like different frameworks and different approaches to the web make different decisions of what you're going to prioritize and make like the support the best and the least. I think Angular seems to have found a spot in moving more towards declarativity, just in general, like a lot of the PR.
Because the speed, right? I mean, it's going to be faster and more efficient in the long run.
Yeah, I think it also like sort of matches this idea of like verbosity, like less, one of the things you sort of think of in like the scale of how like frameworks are written is like how much is magic? Like how much do you not know behind the scenes? Zones is a big one of that, right? Like there's nobody on the team who can like thoroughly explain everything happening in the zone API, like the zone package. Truly, like that's sort of this like magic box that like things sort of work. And when you really dig into it, you're like, whoa, what's happening here?
Jai Lee. Maybe if anybody can, Jai Lee can. I love that guy.
Totally. But like we have one person who can really explain it, but there's a lot of like magic in there. I think like, you know, one of the great things about like other frameworks is like there's things that are magic and they just work. And then they just work until they don't just work. Angular has that. And so declarative frameworks tend to be better at removing the like magic and allowing things to work because you know why they're working.
I love it. It's easier so that the learning curve is not so steep and you can look at the code and try to figure out, read it backwards and figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Sandra, I like convention over config. Which, yeah, like I think that's another one. I think like this is on the roadmap and I'd love to see us do it. But like the tooling team has sort of talked about like removing a bunch of configs, like just, you know, you can override them if you want, but like we have a ton of config files and we know what like 90% of apps look like from a configuration standpoint, and you can override little pieces of it. But like, why do we give new developers like 7 config files when like very few people are changing those? Not that that's necessarily a declarative model, but it is a convention versus configuration model. So there's definitely eyes into that.
Yeah, I think the inject function also falls in the same category. It is more functional programming like and less config like. So
yeah, I think functional and declarative are like quite similar. Yeah, so that said, like there's no like giant feature that's just going to move Angular to like we are now fully declarative, but like I think in general the features you see being prioritized sort of head that way.
We need to get you a magic wand. You could just go ding and then update all of the developers across the lands. It'd be great. Could do that.
Yeah.
Well, I just did my first complete standalone project like last week, and I must say it is a joy to work with. There is so much less boilerplate, and it is so much easier to reason about, and also the ability to create our route or a sub router or lazy loaded route that is just like an array and done with it without a module and everything that comes along. It is just such a joy to work with this standalone thing.
Yeah,
I really love it.
I'm really excited for ngmu standalone, like ngmu app standalone. When that comes, which like hopefully is a version 15 thing, like just getting people started off the bat with it.
Yeah. Then also it would be so awesome if there was ng generate component with a route.
As standalone, yeah. I think it's interesting. So like you see a lot of PRs. So the router has had like massive improvements from standalone. That's a version 15 sneak peek. Because
we could have you think we could have a whole episode dedicated to that? Who should we have? Because I think we should talk a lot more about the router.
Yeah, Andrew Scott. So Andrew Scott's writing a blog post right now because essentially like he has rewritten a ton of the router to be standalone, which means that like it is so tree shakeable now. Like a lot of the router wasn't tree shakeable by design. And he has rewritten so much of it that it's now like, even if you're not using standalone, it's like, if you update, we're tree shaking like half the router now. Because there's this ton of stuff in it that like people aren't using in every app, in every route.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I feel like there's so much more that we could talk about with the router. So I'm going to reach out to Andrew and see if we can have him on the calendar sometime and just like maybe go into more detail about the blog post. And also, you know, who's coming is Christian. I want to know, and well, hold on. Before we get into that, I wanted to mention something because there's something I almost forgot to mention to you, and I've been wanting to message you, but I'm going to be out of the office next week. So before I forget, Emma, we recently had the Cypress team on, and I don't know if you've seen this really cool migration tool that they built. I think it was Adam and Paul on the Cypress team from Protractor to Cypress. Have you seen this? Because it's brand new. They showed it to us a couple weeks ago, and we have a video. Jazia was just helping me with video editing so that we could get it up on our YouTube channel. I'm going to send you a link. It's a short little like 5-6 minute video about this new migration tool that I thought was really cool. So I'm going to send that to you. Don't let me forget.
Yeah. No, please do. I know that they have a migration tool because we've talked to them about it a little bit.
We have it. They showed it to us in the expert channel. We have it. And I was just like, I have all these videos that need to be edited. So Jazia, thank you so much because he's been helping me get those edited. So I'm going to try tonight before I leave my office to get that video marked as public, and I'll send it over to you and you can share it with Mark. And also I want to talk about, can we talk about just a little bit about adding directives to host elements?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's super cool.
This is something that people have been asking for a while, and so it's on the roadmap.
Is it on the roadmap?
Well, I think it's on the. It doesn't say like when. It just is something that's in progress or something that's being discussed. It's not like a, you know.
No, it is.
We don't have like a date or anything. But can you give us a scoop?
I think it's inside Angular already.
Is it like? What can you tell us, Emma?
Well, that's the roadmap. Yeah, Minko did tweet about it because I sent him the PR. Sometimes Minko tweets like code snippets I send him, and I'm like, okay, Minko. I'm glad that.
Can you give us, so for anyone who's not following the roadmap or hasn't seen this before, because this has been a feature request for a while, can you break it down? Because we have some architects and beginners and everybody in this channel. Can you break it down, like adding directives to host elements and what this will allow us to do and why people have been asking for it? Like, what problem are we solving here first?
Yeah. So if you have multiple directives on a component or like just an element, here we're calling it a host element, and we actually renamed it, which is what I was looking for. It's now called the Directive Composition API. So it'll be a new API. But the idea is like if you're using multiple directives, we make it, there's not a way in Angular to control the inputs and outputs and functionality between directives super well. Like that is just not something we currently have a solution for. So if you have, let's say like a mat tooltip, but you're also highlighting the text but you're also like using all these different directives in a reusable component. A great example would be like a form element. So like, let's use one of Sanders' forms and ignore all the form part. Just like if I have a form input and I like maybe highlight it, but I also make the text red, and all these things are coming in as directives. Those directives are written elsewhere, and they have inputs and they have outputs, and we're controlling their systems. But there's not a good way to apply all those directives to a single element and control the interface like an API, right? So then if I implemented that form element, I would want to plug into maybe some of those inputs. I would want to like control those directives and what they're doing. Let's say like I want to highlight with pink instead of yellow, if the component allows me. So what are we calling it? The directive composition API is like a new API within components that allows you, or within the CDK, that allows you to essentially declare, and if you open that tweet from Minko, it allows you to declare a host directive. And the host directives is going to be an array of directives where you can either just say the directive, so like has color is a single directive, and then you're using that directive within this map menu component, or you can declare this like object that says the directive, but also declares what inputs and outputs you can use in it. So it's sort of like making a more opinionated API surface of like, if I use this component now, I can change the inputs and outputs, and I have control of those within the directive. But has color, I'm not giving any control to the input and output. So has color, let's say like if the has color directive is red, like this component map menu doesn't allow you to change that. So you're being more declarative about what the API surface of the directives within a component are. Does that sort of make sense?
I think so. Kai has a question.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it is even a good idea, but have you already thought about making those even be conditionally available, like setting a feature flag from the outside of the component and then being able to maybe in the lifecycle with a function or a service you can inject, like attach new directive on a later spot in time?
I don't think that's part of the current design. I think that it is at compilation that we're changing the host directive design. But if there's a use case, that might be something interesting to explore.
If there's a use case, Kai Roeder will find it.
Huh. I'm not sure. Maybe the fact that you are able to even just add them to the component decorator is already so amazing. Like I can imagine, I'm not sure if it would work, but I can imagine that we could get rid of lots of our abstract classes we right now use and replace them with a more plug-in ecosystem where directives are the plugins for our components, like a base table directive, and you have certain implementations and attach the base table to all those implementations, and now you have all those inputs and can share them and stuff like that. I hope this would work well.
Yeah, completely. So I think that the thing about, so I'm looking at the lifecycle hooks right now. So I think that the way the lifecycle hooks of binding directives to the DOM like means it would probably be hard. You could do something in ng-on changes potentially, but I think it'd be pretty hacky. Like I'm not sure if there's a reason to need to plug into adding more directives to this array. But yeah, I mean, by design, like there's not going to be a migration to this because this is like a completely new API that we've been completely missing. Where like we are, like if you use multiple directives, which a lot of Angular components do, it'll be interesting to see. I think like this is a cool PR, but the cooler PR will be that Christian wrote this design and Christian is going to implement this API across all of the Angular material components. And there are like 10 to 20 really good use cases for why this API like reduces the complexity of what our components, like even the components we provide, look like by quite a bit, because like most components have multiple directives, and being intelligent and intentional about what you can control on those components is like a big change in the mental model of like right now we hack that essentially.
And Christian will be here to talk more about, I'm hoping he'll be able to talk more about that week after next. And he'll be able to answer questions, and I asked him to just like give us like a little show us a little bit, and then we'll have more Q&A. And he can also answer questions about material, because you guys have been asking for a while for a visit from the material team. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you can do a lot of that already with the current design.
Oh, well, we'll just tell Christian, never mind then.
Yeah, the thing is, if you create a directive, you can inject the component you need, and then use the how is it called, compositing on the directive. So you can have a directive, add multiple directives in one go to an existing component, and have
Why
everything.
then is it a long-standing feature request, Sander?
No, this is now possible. You can now do this. It was not possible before.
Yeah. I thought you were saying you could already do it. So you can do it now because of Christian. I'm with you. Okay.
What Kai was asking is already partial possible, but you need to know the element you're injecting on.
Yeah.
So you need to know the component you're adding your directive to. There are some ways around that, but that is going to be hacky at least.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the PR. And again, like the issue, so the thing about Angular is you can sort of predict what the next potential big project is based on the fact that if you sort by thumbs up, like we did typed forms, right? Dylan came here to talk about it.
We love Dylan.
We
want Dylan to come and just play music for us. But also Dylan, we can't resist asking about Angular.
I know. I need to. You have to ask him about his bunny too. But
I want to talk about your cat. I can't even focus. Yeah, and you guys should, if you go and Google Dylan Hun, you're gonna find this old YouTube channel. The guy can play, like seriously. Let's not even talk about the programming. Like I just got all distracted. It was like crazy. But anyway, he also is really good with type forms. We like him.
Yeah. So I mean. I think he's probably working on something else now. I'll have to figure out what it is. But, you know, so this is, if you sort the issues by thumbs up, now that Dylan closed that one, this is by far the next one. Because again,
the directives one?
Yeah. So unsurprising, it is the next thing. But yeah, it's really cool. There's a better code snippet, I think, than what Minko shared, honestly, which is, I mean, I can
screen if you want, if you have time.
Yeah.
We're here for another hour. We're going to have people coming in and drinking, but you know.
Yeah. Here, let's see. How can I make it?
And now we're going to have to go back to Dylan now that the type forms are done and be like, Dylan, what have you done for us lately?
We need to do more. No. Yeah. Here, let me put this.
We love him. He's cool. We do the same thing with Alex. Like, Alex, what are you working on? We just want to know. And Alex goes, I'm busy. Come back next month.
Alex is busy.
Yeah.
Just look at Alex's GitHub of how many PRs he is reviewing, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can't bother him too often because he's doing very important work. Are you sharing your screen? Are you going to share your screen?
I was about to, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is here. This is like the rest of the context for that. So Minko showed this snip. But just so you can see, like, let's say you have like 20 directives. Like, this is what you're actually doing is you're saying like, okay, like I have a CDK tooltip here and the host can have access to these things, except here, my component is actually deciding like, I'm not going to give access to these attributes versus in the menu, I have an input and an output. And I'm directly giving you access so that within this component, I could then like, let's say, I don't know, like within some function, I could control and say like disabled, oops, whatever. Disabled equals true, right? Like I could have a reason to change this attribute. So you're just controlling what you have access to, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Versus right now, like you're just throwing all of these directives on something and like too bad for this, you know? Like that is invisible code for you. And like, too bad if you want that, like that's gone too, you know? And like, oh, you want 2 directives? Like that's a bummer. Bundle them somewhere else.
You need to write the error messages, Emma. I think we need to take a vote on that. We need to insist Emma writes the error messages.
I mean, like it, you know, that's the thing about it. If you're going to be a declarative framework, you have to give people ways to declare what they want to do.
I just love the messages.
Yeah.
Sorry, not happening. Bummer for you.
I think that's the
And
opposite.
also the visuals are very helpful. Thank you. It's nice because I've noticed like sometimes, and I mean, it's a good problem and a bad problem, but the Angular documentation is so vast and there's so much that I noticed sometimes that the Angular team sometimes moves faster than the docs. And so there's like cool little jewels that you can do that it just hasn't made it through to the documentation yet. So it's so cool to have you guys come on the show and show us little cool things that we can do. And even sometimes if it's there, if the docs have been updated, it's hard for us to go and follow all of it and keep up with it. So it's really fun when you guys come and be like, did you know you could do this? Did you know you could do that?
Yeah, to be clear, you cannot do this yet. I think it is, I mean, that PR is still open in
Yeah, it's not
review.
merged yet.
But that's where we're going.
But that's like by far where we're going, and it's targeting a minor. So like whenever it gets the LGTMs, like again, this is a new API. There's no migration. This is like the worst case of an Angular feature where like we have no path towards moving people onto it because it is so unavailable right now. But that means that similar to standalone components, like it's just going to pop into like a minor one day soon.
Because I think what we did is we got it so where we could try it optionally if we wanted to and then see how it went. And then it came into everybody.
Yeah, this will probably just be a stable API, honestly, because this is just like it's just a new API.
And plus everybody's been screaming for it for a while. So obviously they want it.
We're just going to sneak it into the docs.
Christian
We will make a big deal out of it. But.
I think Christian wrote it because he needed it for himself for the Angular material stuff.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Like that
so
is.
He is using it already in Angular material, so it's not going to change because he's not going to break his own code.
Yeah, 100%. This is one of the things that when they were looking at moving over, like the MDC components will become the stable components soon under the hood. They're already sort of in the process of that. And like, yeah, this API is part of making those components significantly better. Because how often do you get the chance to like rewrite something you wrote a long time ago and just like make it better, but like not better in like this doesn't really do that much. It changes the lifecycle hooks a little bit to like be slightly, it actually makes it a little heavier, honestly, in like compile time, but yeah, how often do you have the opportunity to do that? Not very often. So I think when you do, you should definitely have Christian here to talk about it. But.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him again.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. I know we're rolling into the 10 o'clock.
Well, we're just, the next hour is our Friday social and we're just hanging out. There's Saunders got his beer.
We've
Corona this time.
It's time. It's officially the top of the hour. It's time for beer. But we don't have to leave, Emma. We're going to stay, and you're welcome. I know you have to get back to work at some point, but we don't have to worry about like a hard stop at the top of the hour.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure. Let me see. I know. Let me see if my 10 o'clock wants to come here instead.
I actually really like where the Angular team is bringing Angular now. It is so much more declarative.
Yeah, me too.
Gets better
We
and
love
better.
the Angular team.
The only nitpick we still have is like hydration.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Is that all? Can you just We need to have a magic wand, and Emma can just go ding, and then we'll have it.
Yeah, hydration is an interesting one. I think that the team very likely will try and like cherry pick the best of what other frameworks are doing around this, which I think like the North Star is actually what some of the internal frameworks to Google do. If there's ways to adopt that, I know that that's like something, I think it's why it's harder for us to talk about in general is some of the things that people want to implement in Angular aren't things that we can say like we're looking at, you know, the way X does it, because there are like a few. If you're writing front-end code at Angular or at Google, you're either writing Angular code for the most part, or you're writing like these internal frameworks that pretty much are solely built on the fact that like google.com needs to work really fast and hydration is a part of that story. And so they have some of that figured out. The trade-offs are that like, you know, they're complicated and hard to read, and I don't understand everything happening in them, frankly. But I think that's the research being done is like, how can we adopt some of the other people who have chosen the trade-off to be like the best hydration story, and like what can we adopt from those frameworks? Yeah.
I think it makes the rest of us feel better when you say it's hard to read.
Well, I mean,
because we feel like that too sometimes.
Oh, no. I have seen the code where she's talking about. That is hard to read.
It is. Yeah. So like,
well,
And not
hydration
reason
is like
about
the
it.
big unanswered question that everybody wants answered. This is why I was like, we want to talk about hydration, but we know it's hypothetical because we don't really have answers yet.
yeah, it's fully researched. So internally, there has been a move to sort of create like Jessica from the Angular team has like a really
We
good
love Jessica.
implementation. Yes, we love everyone.
We need to get her
Jessica,
back too.
yeah, Jessica has been working on like this super internal. So we stole Jessica from the other internal framework team. Like
Sorry, not
2
sorry.
years ago. Yeah. And like she has been working on like how do you write like Angular / internal framework team as like a internal sort of like hybrid framework, not a micro front end, but like a combination of both. And I think like that sort of goes off of the same question of like, how do you steal the best of their hydration answers because they have a good solution there without making it like the least legible thing possible. Because if you think that Angular code is like verbose and hard to read, like Angular is the like beginner friendly framework at Google. Like Angular is the less verbose, like friendlier front end framework at Google, because all of the like flagship apps that don't use Angular, so like Google search, like they are solely targeted on one thing, right? Every framework makes a trade-off. Google search's trade-off is like, we're going to work really fast. And we don't care if the developers have a terrible time writing code to make sure it runs really fast. It's going to work like the fastest possible. And that is going to be the like sole design trade-off that we make a decision for. And the code is like, yeah, it is scary, to be honest. I mean, it's really great. It's like, you know, leading edge at its trade-off decisions, but like it is definitely not known for being beginner friendly, and there's a reason it's not open source.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see where that hydration conversation goes. We should get Jessica back for now. Well, you know, I get distracted, Emma, because if Jessica comes back, you know what I want to know about? R2D2. I want updates. I want pictures. I want to see since the last time we were here what's going. But we always save time at the end for show us what's going on with R2D2 because that's also fascinating. But you know, we want to know what cool stuff she's working on, and then we want to know R2D2. Super fun. She's
I know she like was doing all the Chrome Paint recently, and I was like, "This is so cool." It's so shiny.
As soon as because I think it was the first time that she came on one of our hallway tracks, and I was stalking her online. And before I even met her, I was like, "Oh my god, I love her! She has swords. She has this." I was such a nerd, and so much fun. We have to invite her back sometime.
Yeah. It is quite a good
Oh my
topic.
goodness. Is that your next meeting?
Yeah.
Y'all. This is very exciting. Hold on. He's got to join. I'm so excited. Mark Thompson, how the hell are you, my friend? You're muted though.
Mark, you're young
It's so good
muted.
to see you.
Muted. What a rookie mistake. Unbelievable.
Hello.
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 It's
Hi,
good to
Mark.
see you. We
Yeah,
missed you. We haven't seen you in for freaking ever.
Oh, that's why I remember I messaged you. I'm like, what's going on? How are you doing? Like, what's going on? So it's super great to see everyone and to be back in the building with Angular Nation. Let's go.
Yeah, well, first of all, we've been we've been picking Emma's brain for a while. We're very excited, obviously, about all the work that the Angular team is doing, and I know there's a lot more work coming. But
Aren't we so busy? Like, can you believe that? Like, all the stuff we've been putting out there and all the work we've been doing, it's pretty bananas.
I know. And then you guys had to go party on a boat because you just were so awesome and doing all this amazing work, and everybody's so excited about the work you're doing. I've been like stalking the Angular team and going, Dylan, come and talk to us about forums, and Alex, come and talk to us about this, and then Christian's coming to talk to us. And I was asking Emma if she could bring you because I really wanted you to, just because y'all are so fun. I mean, you guys just bring this fun energy and this human quality to Angular, and I love that, because from afar, and remember, this is what I said when I first started the hallway track, because the Angular team seems so intimidating because it's the Angular team. But if you actually meet anybody on the Angular team and go talk to them, like, everybody is like, I love these people. And that's why I wanted to, bring you guys and meet people. But you and Emma are like fun on another level. Oh, Mark, guess what I found out today? I don't know. Okay, listen, y'all, don't tell anybody because I don't think this is official. And I might edit this out of the video because it's not official yet, but just for those of you who are listening, I think I'm actually going to be at Modern Frontends in London, Mark. So we're going to see each other.
Wow.
And I don't even think we've met in person like ever. I just
We
feel
have
like
not met in person.
Emma, are you going to be there?
I will probably not. No.
Okay.
I'm doing a
Well,
separate Euro journey this year. So Mark is doing Euro November.
Yeah.
woohoo.
Mhm.
Well,
So, Modern
Mark,
Frontends Live.
I believe I'm going to see you in London, and we're going to party. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know how long I'm gonna stay though, because that will be my only second time in London. And so I don't know how I'm gonna feel coming back, because my first time won't be until next week.
Well, the first time
So
I went to London, I went there for a conference and then immediately left. And then I was sorry because there was so much I wanted to see. So the second time I went to London, I said, actually, I believe that I was hanging out with Hans and from the CLI team and Christian and
okay.
Samantha, and we were running around London being tourists. And then we were exhausted at the end of the day, but we had a lot of fun. So if you get a chance, if you can, try to stay an extra day, and we'll be tourists.
Maybe.
It'll be fun.
You know what? Maybe I'll work out of the London Google office that week, and then that way I'll get some time in London, and then go do the conference, and then come home. But
And
I've
you have
never
to
been
go
that
all the
way.
way to if you go to the London Google office, you have to go up to the roof. It's cool. It's very
I'm
cool.
looking forward to it. No, this is super exciting. I'm so glad you're going to be there. I'm really interested in this conference, so I want to see what type of magic is going to happen there. I'm interested.
Yeah. And I think Oye is in. Oye, are you here?
I saw
Oye
that.
is also, I think, going to submit a talk, so we might see him too. Anyway, so Mark, we are jumping into the Friday social, but we have been talking about the roadmap. We've been talking a little bit about hydration, about directives, about forms, all kinds of stuff. Is there anything that you want to share with us? Is there anything in particular that you're excited about? Because we obviously, one thing we all have in common, we're huge Angular nerds, and we are like obsessed with Angular. We love it. So is there anything in particular that you want to share with us? Any questions you want to ask, or any nerdy kind of Angular stuff?
Oh, if I can ask you all questions, that's really interesting to me. is to hear back, because I think you all hear so much from us, but I don't get to hear from you folks so much. I had a question for you all. So on Twitter, the land of no holds barred feedback, right? People were really excited about the inject function for managing your dependencies, or for your dependency injection. How are you folks feeling about that?
Raise your hand if you hold on, Sonder. Raise your hand. Anybody else? We know Sonder. Raise your hand if this is something that you're excited about.
Oh, wait, do people know what the inject function is? That's the other thing.
Well, Sonder and Kai are our power users. Kai's on the story. Well, Sonder and Kai probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of us, because this is the great thing about this channel is we have beginners and we have architects all mixed in together, and
Sure.
when everybody like asks questions and we just like lump everybody in. So can you give us the quick version, the explain like I'm 5 for the people who are not following this?
Yes.
And then we'll go to Sonder because Sonder has comments.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So right now, whenever you want to like bring in a dependency into your class to be able to use in your component, you have to do it through the constructor, right? And then you pass in each dependency you want through the constructor parameters. But with the inject function, you don't need to do that. You can actually just do inject and assign that what gets returned to you to a variable that you can use in your component class. So it's a different way of writing components a bit, and a different way of managing your dependencies. And so I know lots of people are excited about what it can open up, but I'm really interested in you all's feedback on it, because I don't think that we anticipated the like fanfare behind inject, which is why you didn't see like a video and a blog post. We didn't think people would get so like wrapped up in it, and now everybody's talking about it. So I just love to hear from you folks what you're thinking, and do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you want something better? Like what are you thinking?
I'm going to let Sonder, but I just want to say real quick, this is one of the things, because I said, I don't want to be a nerd, but this is one of the things that I love about you and Emma, because the Angular, like there's so much and it gets really complicated. And I love the fact that you guys can explain this in such simple terms, but you can answer like all the questions, but like in a simple, anyway, let's not get mushy. Go Sonder.
Okay. Well, I really love the inject because it makes it so much easier to give developers utility functions. I just created an intersection service that basically takes out all of the crap for virtual squalling, and it is like, okay, is intersecting, and you get an observable out, and they don't need to do anything else. It is just a function call for the developer. Under the hood, I can only do that because I can inject stuff from within this function. And that is such a nice way to provide utility functions.
Oh, I see. Because you're not forced with the instantiation of the class to pull in your dependency, so you can do it from a function. So you can do some like dynamic loading and stuff there with inject.
It's not actually dynamic loading. I'm just injecting the things that I need. I inject a service, and I inject, for example, in sometimes the CDR, or sometimes I inject the native element, the element ref, so I can grab an hold of stuff, and then I do something with it, and I return like an observable that they can use. And for them, it's just an observable where a Boolean pops out. But under the hood, I'm actually doing a boatload of work and utilizing a specialized service. And that is just one of the cases. I'm going to use this in my validation library also, where it's drop that easy to hook up a validator, and then just in the template you use a magic string. Sorry, there is no way around that. And then the form suddenly knows how the whole model needs to be validated, and it will update all of the form controls inside there. That's where I found out the thing with the errors, Emma.
Nice job. Okay, very cool. So let me ask one last question, then I actually have to run, and I want to steal Emma with me.
Don't let me forget Mark, because I have a thing for you real quick, but go.
Okay, sure. One last question. How do you folks feel about testing with inject? Because I know that was one of the big contentions. Okay. Wadi, what's going on?
Well, this is because I was telling Emma I needed to reach out to you. I was waiting because Josiah was helping me, because I have a bunch of stuff going on in the experts channel. And one of them was the Cypress team was here like just last week or the week before, recently, I don't know. And I needed help with video editing to get them all up on YouTube. So Josiah was helping. Thank you very much, Josiah. Because we have one that I actually pulled out. There is a brand new migration tool, like migrating Protractor to Cypress. And they actually built like a little thing that you just like paste
Who
your
made
code in
that?
there.
Are you saying from the Cypress team made that?
Yes. Have you seen it?
Okay, sure.
So they were here, and I have like a little 6-minute video from them that I just put on the YouTube channel, like literally just now while you were talking to Sonder. And I'm going to send you a link because I thought you'd like it.
Oh, very
So
cool. Yeah,
that's what I was going,
definitely.
I didn't want to forget to tell you. And I'm putting it in the chat.
Yeah, testing is an issue.
So I'm pretty
still.
excited about that. The Cypress team actually has a bunch of cool stuff going on, and that was one of them.
Cool.
Testing is an issue because the developers that are using our function that does some inject under the hood do not know. They need to mock the things there. So that is going to be a little bit of an issue. I think that's up to the creators of the functions to take care of this somehow, but we need something there that makes that a little bit easier. Perhaps
I remember
like
when I first
optional
started
mock
learning
thing.
testing, mocking was what always made me cry. I would be like bebopping along, everything's fine, and then I got to mock out something, and I'm just like, I don't know how to do that. It was rough. We got through it. Good times.
Hey, that's interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, I thought you'd like that, Mark. Mark and I need to run to sync on other stuff, but that was number one on the agenda for that. So thank you for checking off part of our agenda already.
Thank you, both of you, for taking the time to come by and hang out with us. These conversations for us are so interesting and valuable because we have so many conversations, but to actually have you guys come here and we can ask you directly and get the answers from you directly is so freaking cool. And you guys really are so good at explaining things, and you're so approachable and not at all scary. And so it's just really nice to have you guys here to answer random questions that we have. I know, Mark, I'm not saying, because like I said, it seems like that, like it's not just me. A lot of people find this stuff intimidating, and it's nice to have you guys come because we see like you guys are so chill, and it's fun just to have you guys hang out. So thank you so much. Okay, one last thing before you go. We have a tradition here at Angular Nation. I'm going to stop the recording here, but before I do, everybody, please come off mute and help me thank Emma and Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah,
Cheers.
thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Hope you have a good weekend.
We love you guys. Come back soon and often. Have a good
All right,
weekend.
sounds good. Bye for now.
Bye.